This is a video demonstration of the ScaleMate68 For Piano app, suitable for grades 6, 7 and 8, running on an iPad. The app functions exactly the same on an iPhone, it just displays help information slightly differently. The ScaleMate15 For Piano app, suitable for grades 1 to 5, differs from ScaleMate68 For Piano only in the following two ways. 1. Because there are fewer scales and arpeggios in the early grades, 1 to 4, there are fewer playlists. 2. For grades 1 to 5, no distinction is made between the different forms of the minor scale for similar motion scales, as the student is free to choose for themselves. This is the initial screen when you first load the app. If you think you need help, just tap the info button in the navigation bar above. Let's do that now. ScaleMate68 For Piano is suitable for ABRSM. This is the main menu where you select your grade. There are two main parts to the app, mock exam and practice. We've made the mock exam as realistic as possible, but more importantly, we've made it smart enough to intelligently cycle through all the scales and arpeggios on repeated plays, meaning that a minimum number of mock exams is required to ensure you've gone through all the scales and arpeggios for your selected grade. Let's try a grade 6 mock exam. The mock exam is very easy to use. Just sit at your keyboard, tap play and follow the mock examiner's directions. When the exam finishes, you can choose to replay it or try a new one. Try to listen to the directions rather than read them, because that's what a real-life exam would be like. The option to read the directions instead of listening to them is provided in case you're using headphones on an electronic keyboard. Tap the toolbar's voice button to hear or see the examiner's directions. Tap play to start. When the notes are moving, you should be playing. If we tap play now, we will only hear the examiner's directions because voice is on. But if I tap the voice button like this, now voice is off, so we will only see the examiner's directions in the display box above. Let's switch voice back on and start the exam. You adjust the voice volume using the slider below. Just before we start the mock exam, please note that you are watching a 30 frames per second demonstration video of an app in which the animations run at 60 frames per second. This is why the animations do not appear to run smoothly here in this video. When running the app on a real device, the animations run very smoothly.
Mock exam, grade 6, group 1. Let's start with some scales. Scale of E minor, harmonic, hand together, legato.
5 seconds after the examiner stops speaking, the notes in the display box become more visible and move from right to left. You should be playing the scale while they are moving. That 5 seconds is called the listen time.
Right hand, B flat minor, melodic, legato.
With voice off, the notes start moving 5 seconds after the scale first appears in the display box. And guess what? You should be playing the scale while the notes are moving. This 5 seconds is called the read time. Either way, voice on or off, you should aim to finish playing the scale by the time the notes stop moving. How long you get depends on the type of scale or arpeggio and the level of the selected grade.
Hand together, B major, legato.
The length of time allowed for playing the scale or arpeggio is based on the tempo given as a general guide in the ABRSM syllabus for the type of scale or arpeggio that was requested and for the selected grade. We call this exam tempo. Once the notes have stopped moving, there is a 3.5 second pause before the examiner requests the next scale. This 3.5 seconds is called the pause time.
Contrary motion, A minor.
If you find the listen, read and pause times are too long, you can decrease them by setting shorter time values in the practice screen and then selecting yes for setting number 3 in the app's settings. I will show you how to do this after the next scale has been requested.
Contrary motion, E flat major.
I will now pause the exam and then tap settings to go to the app's settings screen. By the way, tapping the settings button automatically pauses a playing exam anyway. Default values of 3.5, 5 and 5 are used for the pause, read and listen time settings in mock exams. These times cannot be increased, but you may decrease them by setting lower values in the practice screen and then selecting yes, like this, for this setting. Before we resume the exam, let's quickly navigate to the practice screen to see what values we have in those time settings. We have a pause time of 1.5 seconds, a read time of 3 seconds, and a listen time of 2.5 seconds. It's easy to change these, just use the sliders. But we'll leave them as they were and head back to the mock exam. Let's resume the mock exam and see how those times have changed.
Resuming mock exam. Grade 6. Group 1. Scales. Contrary motion. E flat major.
Now your listen time and pause time are shorter, the exam will be over sooner. If you always start your scale as the notes start moving, and they're still moving when you finish, then you know you're definitely playing them fast enough.
Right hand. A major scale. Staccato.
After you've done a few mock exams, you'll probably notice that some scales are present in every exam. This is because those scales are just about 100% guaranteed to be included in your real exam.
Left hand. E flat major. Staccato.
It is all the other scales, the ones an examiner would randomly select for you to play, which ScaleMate cleverly cycles through in subsequent exams, making sure you never miss a single scale from your grade, and you've gone through all of them in the smallest number of mock exams.
Chromatic scale. Left hand. Starting on B flat.
I will now switch voice off for the rest of the exam. Remember, the read time is 3 seconds, and the scales will now be displayed in the display box above. That's just about everything you need to know about the mock exam. I will now fast forward the video to jump to the end of the exam. It's a really good idea to record your performance with the mock exam and then replay it for the purpose of self-evaluation. There are many recording apps for iPad, and some are free, which can easily record the audio from ScaleMate and your piano playing at the same time. You could also play it back to your teacher. Hooray! Here we are at the end of the exam. As you can see, you can replay the exam if you like, or try a new one, or just finish. Let's finish and go and check out the practice screen in more detail. We'll demonstrate ScaleMate's practice feature with grade 7, so first let's go back to the initial screen and select grade 7 group 1. To understand how you practice your scales with ScaleMate, you need to know what a ScaleMate playlist is. Think of a playlist as a deck of flashcards, where each card has a particular scale, or arpeggio, printed on it, specifying the key, whether it's major or minor, harmonic minor or melodic minor, the articulation, legato or staccato, and the hands, both right hand only or left hand only. When you're ready to practice, ScaleMate shuffles that deck of flashcards, the playlist, and then shows you each card, simultaneously reading aloud the information from the card. Then it gives you just the right amount of time to play the scale, or arpeggio, before going on to the next card. Modifying a playlist so that ScaleMate asks you to play some scales multiple times and others not at all is very easy to do, as you'll see in this video. By the way, that's why the app is called ScaleMate, because it really is your practice buddy, a buddy who remembers your scales for you and reads them out to you so that you get to keep your hands where you want them, on your piano. There's just one other thing you should know about the playlists, and it's here in the info popover. For the practice screen, all the scales and arpeggios are split into separate playlists, keeping similarly fingered scales together. But when you play a playlist, ScaleMate shuffles the scales, or arpeggios, in the playlist before dealing them out to you one at a time. So your finger motor sensory memory is maximized, but you're also training yourself to quickly jump to any scale, which is just what you need for the exam. You choose here what you would like to practice. ScaleMate separates all the scales for your grade into scales, arpeggios, diminished and dominant sevenths for grade 7 and 8 only, and others. Grade 6's diminished sevenths are included in others. Note, others contains those special scales and chromatic scales which are just about guaranteed to be always included in the exam. Most of your scales practice is done using both hands, but in your exam it's often the case that you are asked to play a scale or arpeggio with just the left hand or just the right hand. It can be a good idea, therefore, to spend at least 1 day a week practicing hands separately. These are the 3 practice playlists for all the scales for grade 7, group 1, hands together. From here you can go straight to the practice screen and play the playlist, or you can view or edit the playlist. With auto on in the practice screen, all 3 playlists will play one after the other until all have played once. Also with auto on, it doesn't matter which of the 3 playlists you start with. ScaleMate will still make sure they all play one time. These are just the 3 hands together playlists for grade 7 group 1 scales. There are also 3 hands separate playlists and 3 hands together and separate playlists. Let's compare them all using View. These are the 6 different ways that you could be asked to play the scale of A-flat major using both hands in a grade 7 group 1 exam. And these are the 4 different ways that you could be asked to play the scale of A-flat major using one hand only in a grade 7 group 1 exam. And these are the total 10 different ways that you could be asked to play the scale of A-flat major in a grade 7 group 1 exam. You typically use the view screen to see which scales have counts greater than 1 or which are 0, but you use the edit screen to make those changes. With a count of 0, ScaleMate won't ask you to play that scale in the practice screen, but because ScaleMate doesn't want you to accidentally forget to practice any scales, the totals shown for the playlist will be highlighted in red, reminding you how many scales have been set to 0. Let's go back to the hands together only playlists and edit playlist number 3. This is how easy it is to modify a playlist. Let's say we're confident on the similar motion scales and don't want to practice them. Select the count value above, then tap the elements you wish to change. But we know we need to work on the staccato contraries, and especially the G-sharp minor. Done. Now we won't practice the similar motion scales at all, but we will practice the staccato contraries 4 times for A-flat major and B-flat major, and 9 times for G-sharp minor. This is how ScaleMate makes sure you cannot forget some of the scales in the playlist were set to 0. You may want to remove them from your practice now, but not permanently. The practice screen is easy to use, and once you have it set up to suit you, requires minimal interaction, keeping your hands free to play your keyboard. To help you better understand it, for the next 5 minutes, a long press, touch and hold, anywhere on the screen will display a popover explaining the function of that feature, or you could just take the tour to see the same information in sequence. We won't take the tour because you already understand the functions of the pause time, read time and listen time. Let's quickly look at the other parts. These are the volume controls, combined slider and display for the voice and the metronome. When the voice or the metronome is off, the corresponding volume control is disabled. The toolbar is kind of self-explanatory. ScaleMate's metronome can count you in for each scale if you wanted to. This can be useful for playing at a slower tempo, new scales you're unsure of. When you're more confident, you'll probably want to leave this on 0 or not use the metronome at all, in order to keep your practice sessions times down. This lets you know how far the current playing playlist has progressed. The remaining figure is an estimate only because you're free to alter any time setting anytime during play. Use the tempo picker to tell ScaleMate how much time to allow you to play each scale. Exam tempo is the minimum tempo you should play in the exam. If your teacher wants you to slow down your scales, try exam -20% or exam -40%. The tempo is displayed between the tempo picker and the metronome. Remember, tempos get faster as grades get higher. Also, tempos are different for different types of scales and for arpeggios. When you're more confident and closer to your exam, perhaps try exam +5% or even +10%. The tempo for each scale or arpeggio is displayed here as ScaleMate presents each new scale or arpeggio in the playlist. A minim or a crotchet is always used. A minim signifies 4 notes are to be played per metronome beat, whereas a crotchet signifies 2 notes are to be played per metronome beat. The number indicates how many beats per minute. Changes made in the tempo picker while the playlist is playing will only take effect after the current playlist element, scale, arpeggio, etc. has finished. The metronome is switched on or off in the toolbar. When it is switched on, it plays at the tempo shown for the time it should take to play the scale or arpeggio, etc. that ScaleMate requested. Use the lead-in setting if you want ScaleMate to count you in. Adjust the metronome's volume using the volume slider display. With the volume at 0, you have a silent, visual-only metronome. Okay, that covers just about everything. Let's now see and hear the practice screen in action. Remember, when the notes are moving, you should be playing.
Scales, hand together, practice 3, scales a third apart, G sharp minor, staccato.
I will clip some of the video or fast forward through it, or both, so that you don't get totally bored. But the rest is played in real time with comments to illustrate the practice screen's features.
Contrary motion, B flat major, legato.
You don't have to use the metronome, you can switch it off any time, or just turn the volume down to 0. I'm going to switch it off.
Contrary motion, B flat major, staccato, 4 times, 1 of 4.
Okay, metronome's off. It was starting to really annoy me. Now, let's pretend we find exam tempo a little too fast for our B flat major staccato contrary.
2 of 4.
So we select a slower tempo in the tempo picker, but then we remember that changes in the tempo picker only take effect when the next scale in the playlist is displayed.
3 of 4.
So to make sure we get to play the B flat major staccato contrary 4 times at the slower tempo, we pause and then straightway resume the playlist.
4 of 4. Resuming play of scales, hand together, practice 3. Contrary motion, B flat major, staccato, 4 times, 1 of 4.
Great! Now we're playing at a tempo of 72 beats per minute instead of 80.
Two of 4.
You only need to pause and resume the playlist if you're determined to play the current scale at a different tempo to the tempo selected when the scale first displays.
3 of 4.
Otherwise, just change the tempo in the tempo picker and wait for the change to take effect with the next scale.
4 of 4.
Which is what we'll do with the next scale, because we want to go back to exam tempo.
Contrary motion, G sharp minor, legato.
We only needed the slower tempo for the staccato contrary, so now we want to go back to exam tempo. So we'll quickly modify the tempo picker when we've played this scale.
Contrary motion, G sharp minor, staccato, 9 times, 1 of 9.
Okay, we're back to exam tempo. Now let's pretend we find we're playing the G sharp minor staccato contrary much better than we expected.
2 of 9.
In fact, we're playing it so well that after the 3rd time of playing it, we think we've played it enough.
3 of 9.
We're playing this staccato contrary so well, we don't want to play it 6 more times. We want to go on to the next scale.
4 of 9.
Well, we can, but only if swipe away is enabled, and it isn't at the moment. Let's enable swipe away and go back. And resume the playlist.
Resuming play of scales, hand together, practice 3. Contrary motion, G sharp minor, staccato, 9 times, 1 of 9. Scales a third apart. A flat major. Staccato.
Okay, that covers just about everything there is to know about the practice screen. There are 3 more things I want to show you. The first is how the next playlist automatically starts when auto is on. So, let's fast forward the video to the end of this playlist. Almost there. Here we are. This is the last scale in the playlist. So, because auto is on, we will auto skip to practice number 1 playlist.
Scales. Hand together. Practice 1. Scales a third apart. E minor. Legato.
If you get tired of the voice and want to change, just select someone else from the app's settings, like this.
Resuming play of Scales, Hands Together, Practice 1, Scales a third apart, E minor, Legato.
The final thing to show you is just how easy it is to go back to the edit screen and put playlist practice number 3 back to its original state. First, we'll stop this playlist, tap stop, then we'll navigate back, then we'll edit practice number 3, then tap the change all button. We're done. Hope this video has been useful, and thanks for watching.